Okay, welcome to our September meeting of the Council. I'm looking forward to a busy meeting with plenty of public questions and 2 motions to be debated. There are 3 motions to be debated. Can I remind councillors and guests to switch their phones to silent? First item on the agenda is apologies. Are there any apologies to report, please? Councillor White.
Councillor Hudson has possibly got, it's poorly.
Okay, item 2, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest, please? Thank you very much. Item 3, minutes of the council meeting held on the 19th of July. We'll now approve the minutes of the last meeting of the council. Will somebody please move them, please? Thank you, Councillor Shanker. Anybody? Seconder? Councillor Ingle. All those in favour? All those against? Thank you very much. Item 4, announcements from the Mayor. I have announcements to make some announcements to make this evening, but before I do that, I'd like to deal with some housekeeping matters. We have a significant number of questions to be heard this evening. For those questions in attendance, please remember that public question time is limited to 30 minutes in duration, so please be considerate for your fellow questioners and be prompt when asking your supplementary questions. Copies of the Council Questions booklet are available to view on the Democracy portal. If you require a hard copy, please make yourself known to a member of our Democratic Services team. For councillors, remember to turn your microphones on when addressing the meeting, and if you're able to, please stand. Please speak clearly and face the front of the room. There is no need to bend down to speak in the microphone. Moving on with my announcements, working alongside the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Potter, we've enjoyed attending a wide range of civic engagements over the summer months. Highlights have included meeting several delegations of Chinese visitors to Derby, attending the British BMX Championships in Alveston Park, and attending summer fetes and fun days in Derby's wonderful green spaces. I recently had the privilege of being invited and attending the Redeemed Christian Church of God music concert in the park of the Solid Rock Parish. I met a lovely man, the pastor James Igodeby, who gave me a copy of their latest magazine. Anyone who knows me will know that I'm not a particularly religious man, but I do appreciate the goodness that can flow from religion. I thought I would read an extract from his magazine as it was poignant to my visit. Romans 12:2, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. The pastor then added in his own words, and I quote, in today's world, we all want to conform, so we are always in search of things that are in vogue. Just get the approval of people and feel a fake confidence. You can imagine the shock he encountered when 2 council cabinet members openly struggled with the niceties of a civilized world just to appease their leader. The gang mentality I've seen in this chamber so many times before, where solitary encounters reveal a more normal person. Community events are not the places to play petty party politics. I know the pastor called upon your group out over this, and I appreciated the subsequent gesture from Councillor Onwahu. Just remember your attempts at blocking my engagements, and I know of one where you have unfortunately succeeded. I have a huge list to attend, and we all need to engage in their event, not ours. You do not make me feel uncomfortable, but like Pastor Igodeby experience, you make it awkward for them. It was also great to see councillors attend the 3 events that formed the Darley Park Weekender. I am sure you will join me in passing on the council's thanks to all those involved in organising such a successful occasion for our city. Mayors for Peace. As many of you will know, Derby is one of 8,271 cities around the world who are part of the Mayors for Peace initiative. Led by the Hiroshima Peace Culture Foundation, The organisation aims to foster peace and understanding between nations by campaigning for nuclear disarmament. It also seeks to identify shared solutions to global challenges such as starvation and poverty, the plight of refugees, human rights abuses, and environmental degradation. I was pleased to receive a letter from Mayor Matsui Kasumi from the Mayors for Peace sharing their annual peace declaration, asking me to share this important message of peace and international cooperation with you all. I have agreed and accepted an urgent notice of motion from Councillor Shankar in relation to the news that Alstom may face a 3-year production gap at his Alstom site. I propose that we consider the motion at the conclusion of this evening's agenda. A copy of the motion was published on the Democracy Portal earlier this week for you to view. Item 5, statements by members of the Council Cabinet. I understand there are no statements received. Item 6, we now go on to the questions from members of the public. We will now hear questions from members of the public to Cabinet members and committee chairs. We've received 24 in total, although some have been grouped together as they relate to similar topics. Where a written response has been provided in the booklet, we will hear a summary of the question from an officer. Sorry, we've changed that. Have I got the old one? Beg your pardon, we've changed that. Given the volume of questions that we have now received, I will not be asking an officer to read a summary on this occasion. The booklet has been published in advance of the meeting and it is available to view online for everybody alongside with the other agenda documents. We will therefore move straight to the supplementary questions. In circumstances where questions have been grouped together, each questioner will be given the opportunity to ask a supplementary question. So we move on to the first question there are 2 questions from Tony Mott. Therefore, he gets 2 supplementaries. Have we got Tony Mott?
No, he's not present.
Right, he's not present, thank you. The second question is a question relating to the A38 junctions, and we've got Lucy Giuliano.
Yeah, I'm here.
Would you like to ask your supplementary question?
Yes, please, thank you. So, as you're well aware, Carmel, just a few months ago, I stood to be a Green councillor for Darley Ward. During Labour's election campaign, you distributed numerous leaflets stating your strong intent to, quote, respond to the climate crisis, including a specific flyer pledging to, quote, protect our planet. Throughout, you made it very clear to the public that voting Green would get Tory. You say you have no control over whether the expansion goes ahead, but you do have a choice. Your decision not to formally and publicly oppose the A38 expansion as administration means none of your words were true, and actually voting Labour has resulted in exactly the same position as the Tories.
Lucy, can I just get you to ask a question, please?
Yep. So my question is, to make up for manipulating and lying to the public, will you be donating a substantial amount to our legal challenge? Thank you.
Councillor Swan.
Thank you, Lucy, for your question. I absolutely don't agree with that position. Thank you.
Okay, we don't have Jane Hardstaff with us, but we do have Claire Wood. Would you have a supplementary?
I do, yes. I'm also very disappointed that you won't oppose the A38 expansion. I appreciate that it's a national scheme, but it is possible to stop it. We're fast running out of time to tackle the climate emergency. As about half the traffic using this road is local, doing very short journeys, wouldn't it be cheaper, less carbon emitting, less polluting, less noisy, less dangerous and less nature destroying to provide more and better bus services and encourage more active travel, which would then also improve the health of so many people?
Thank you. I absolutely agree with that position. Unfortunately, this is not our decision. What I hope is that people will come together and help us to mitigate some of the issues around the construction of this project. Thank you.
Thank you. The next questioner is Pauline Inwood, which I believe is here.
Yes, thank you. It seems that your Derby City Council response is basically to accept what the National Highways want to do with Derby, and that our questions about what it will mean to the residents of Derby should be put to them and not to you. But haven't you been elected to represent us? So, for example, you're consulting in quite detail on proposals to make alterations to Ashbourne Road. this consultation seems to me it will be relatively pointless and irrelevant if the A38 scheme goes ahead until after that's all done anyway.
Okay, you've asked two questions there.
Okay. Have you been elected to represent us?
Yes, Pauline.
The next one is Mayor Bain.
Hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yep. Oh, no, you need to press the button, please.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to hear the Council has a vision for an efficient, integrated and affordable transport system that reduces carbon emissions. In the A38 decision letter by the Secretary of State, he stated that the A38 expansion would increase road capacity, therefore opening up surrounding land for a minimum of 11,000 developments, which shows that the primary objective is not improving local journey times and reducing local congestion, but increasing road capacity for the profit of developers. So what preparations has the Council made for the increase in local traffic and other likely environmental impacts from the minimum of 11,000 developments if the A38 expansion goes ahead? Thank you.
This will be in the mitigation plans. Thank you, Maya.
Thank you. Maya, you have a second supplementary.
When do you expect the mitigation policy to be published, please?
Yet to be confirmed. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Sorry.
She said it's yet to be confirmed.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. The next question, the next supplementary is from Adrian Howlett.
Hi. Thank you, Councillor Swan. I agree. Why in Derby and why now? I note that National Highways is an arm of government and that it's Parliament that makes the laws. Central government has been found to break the law with the first A38 consent order. With its net zero plans, those were found to be illegal. And we believe that it's highly likely that the latest consent order is likely to be illegal. Today, we see a government that clearly represents the fossil fuel industry and not our citizens. So my question is, what should we do with a government that routinely breaks the law?
That's a really easy one. Vote Labour.
I'm afraid you set yourself up for that, Adrian. You do have a second supplementary. No, that's okay. Thank you. Right, the next question is, the question is not here. So we then go to D, which is Vanessa Boone. You have a supplementary.
Thank you. Yes, the question was about the use of bailiffs, particularly given the cost of living crisis. My original question hasn't been answered directly, so it'd be great if there is possible follow-up to get that data I've asked for. But my supplementary is, will the Council explore an ethical debt policy, such as being adopted by councils in consultation with their local communities, including in Manchester, Westminster, Haringey and Middlesbrough, with some exemplar Labour-led councils actually limiting bailiffs to households without any other risk factors, or even pledging to completely end the use of bailiffs for council debt, as is already standard practice in Northern Ireland.
Councillor Shanker.
Thank you, Vanessa. That sounds really good. Our policy on debt collection has been recognised nationally as being an exemplar. But if there are other ideas and other avenues for the council to recuperate money owed to the council, we're more than willing to and prepared to listen and take them ideas forward.
Thank you. The next questioner is James Lampert. Do you have a supplementary?
Yeah, I've got just one question. I'd like to say thank you very much to Councillor Swan for the positive response, recognising the environmental benefits of plant-based eating. And my question is, would you be prepared to have a follow-up meeting, please, to explore more about what becoming a plant-based council by default means, and have a discussion about how this could really be brought to life through the Climate Action Plan?
Most certainly, James.
Okay, the next questioner is Ruth Coates. Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, yes, I do. Right, thank you for your reply. It is, it's encouraging to see that there is genuine enthusiasm for improving the bus services. I live in Spondon, which is one of the areas where the community bus scheme is being trialled.
The overwhelming feeling amongst everyone I've spoken to is that it is not working. It is too limited, both in its route and its timetable. The Ilkeston Flyer, which is our other option, is also not an adequate substitute for the Spondon Flyer. Because it now serves 2 large communities, it is very often full and is unable to stop for passengers in Spondon. So the question is, when assessing the success of the community buses, will the residents of all the areas concerned be consulted? Also the residents of other communities affected, for example, people from Ilkeston who are unable to get on the bus from town because it is full of people going to Spondon.
That's a really interesting question, Ruth, and I'll have a follow-up meeting with you to discuss this further. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
I'll have a follow-up meeting with you to discuss this further.
Oh, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Swan. The next questioner is Simon Bacon. Do you have a supplementary, Simon?
I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Thank you for your response, Councillor Shanker, in relation to my question about the inter-authority agreement version 3. You say yet in your reply to my first question. Can you confirm tonight that nobody from the council will sign the 3rd inter-authority agreement? And for clarity, that's yes or no. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. I'm currently reviewing this whole project. It's very complicated. You know, I've said before, I think the previous administration decision in February of this year to proceed with repairing and recommissioning this plant was fundamentally flawed. I still believe that to be correct. So once I've carried out a thorough review, I'll respond in more detail.
Thank you. The next questioner is not in attendance. We've got a second supplementary question from Lucy Giuliano.
I don't have a supplementary question because previously when I asked my supplementary question earlier it wasn't answered, so I don't see the merit in asking one. Thank you.
Okay, the next questioner is Vanessa Boone. Do you have a supplementary?
Thank you, yes. So the question was about the socio-economic duty, which was adopted by the Council in May 2022 under the previous administration, though progress was slow. So my question was about following up the specific motion that this Council did vote through, which was to engage the specifically named groups, including Derby United Against Poverty and the People's Assembly, who are the ones who actually campaigned that led to that motion. Can I get a more specific commitment to consult with those groups? With thanks.
Vanessa, I'd be delighted to talk with those groups at a convenient time, which is mutual.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jane Hardstaff is not in attendance. The next supplementary question comes from Claire Wood.
Thank you. Do you think the Council's website should reflect the dire situation we're in so that people are properly and reliably informed and know what to expect in the coming years if more radical action regarding climate change is not taken, as was the case with COVID, so that we can all work together to achieve positive outcomes and support the Council in implementing relevant policies?
Thank you, Claire, for this. I think it's really important here that we don't lose sight of the bigger picture. We need to be responsive and understanding to the general population and create something that can relate to our families, community and our friends. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from Pauline Inwood. Do you have a supplementary?
Yeah, thank you for this answer. Nice and direct, but I have got a supplementary. Please, can you confirm that everything to do with this sustainability board will be open for the public in every way, like the minutes, the meetings, the agendas, that the public can attend meetings and that the public can suggest topics and see what results from decisions at these meetings and possibly contribute to membership?
Labour are always trying to be focused on being transparent, and where we can, we will be. And we'll certainly take into consideration some of the suggestions that you've outlined in your supplementary question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next one is supplementary from Ruth Coates. Do you have a supplementary?
I do. Moving the focus away from cars and restricting access to town sounds like a good start, but I wonder if it is enough. Unless there is an actual disincentive to bringing a car into town, I'm sure that people will carry on driving in, and all that will result from the restrictions and the road alterations will be more congestion rather than a decrease in the number of cars on the road. Does the council really believe that car drivers will choose to leave their cars at home and use public transport or active travel instead, without these being incentivised and car use being disincentivised?
Thank you, Ruth. I suppose fundamentally we want to make people's lives better. I don't believe that Derby is in that position where it has an effective travel infrastructure to enable people to make those choices. And that's what we need to do. We need to be able to create a good infrastructure. You've already talked about this in terms of the previous question about bus services. We're not there yet. Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you.
Can you just switch your microphone off, please? Thank you. The next questioner is Simon Bacon. Do you have a supplementary, Simon?
I have, Mr Mayor, thank you. Thank you for your response, Councillor Shanker, in relation to the £93.5 million that the councils have paid to Resource Recovery Solutions for their failed plant and associated contract. If £93.5 million reflects the fair value of the long-term waste management contract itself, how much of that figure is specifically the Derby and Derbyshire Money Pit incinerator on Sinfin Lane? Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. I'm not sure what the question is, to be honest with you. I think that's quite difficult to do. We can explore this further outside of here. As it states in the initial answer, the total figure is the value of the overall contract. It's an estimated fair value, which we've been advised on by legal, financial and technical experts, would limit the council's exposure, because a long, drawn-out legal battle could quite easily have led to a much larger figure that the councils would have had to pay to settle this litigation.
Thank you very much. The next question is not in attendance, so that ends the public questions. We now move on to item 7. This is the questions relating to Derbyshire Fire Authority or Derby Homes. I understand that none have been received. If any of the public questioners that have been in attendance wishes to remain, you can go up to the gallery upstairs, and I'm sure somebody will show you the way. Thank you very much for your attendance. Okay, item 8 is questions from non-council cabinet members. We now move on to those questions. 20 have been received, I understand. And again, I will not be asking an officer to read out a summary of the question, with the exception of those where no response has been provided in the booklet. So the first question is from Councillor Smale. Do you have a supplementary?
I do, thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you for the answer, Councillor Shanker. Whilst you might have danced around the answer that Mr Simon Bacon was looking for, if there has been no signature on the IA3, will you be bringing a cabinet paper with the county council to pause this process in the meantime? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smale. You may want to ask yourself why you failed to sign the IAA3 in the several months you had to sign that. I'm not in no rush to sign IAA3. And as far as soft market testing is concerned, had you read your own cabinet papers, you might have a better understanding of where the previous soft marking testing, where it led to. So try reading your papers before you turn up to meetings.
Thank you. The next question is from Councillor Eyre. Do you have a supplementary?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Dinser, for your answer. I make that just over £4,000 that was spent on the 2 unauthorised encampments. And there were very mixed views at the time on permitting the entire Rainbow Park encampment to remain for as long as it did, despite the antisocial behaviour my residents were reporting through the correct channels. Anti-encampment measures are needed at Rainbow Park and the initial designs are promising. So will the Cabinet member confirm whether he will request or instruct the allocation from the Parks budget of an equal amount of money as was spent dealing with both unauthorised encampments to securing additional anti-encampment measures at the two locations? Yes or no?
Councillor Eyre, you should be fully aware of what the process is about any costs. To ask me to get Parks to fund an incursion, which was a strategic council matter, doesn't seem very sensible and a cheap shot. Thank you very much.
Next question is from Councillor Hassel. Do you have a supplementary?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Shanker. I would have thought you'd have took the opportunity to sort of highlight in isolation what you and your Cabinet have been doing over the last 100 days or so while you've been in administration. However, I think just for the record, it does sort of total up to several million. My question to you is, what reassurance can you give this chamber and the residents of the city that as we sit here now, what confidence can you give us that we are not heading to a Section 114 situation like other authorities?
Thank you, Councillor Hassel, for your supplementary question. I can send you a link to several statements we issued on our achievements in 100 days. I'm sure you've read them, but just in case you haven't, I'm more than happy to send you that. And I believe we achieved more in 100 days than you guys did in 5 years. Specifically on Section 114, unfortunately, not just Derby City Council, but local government nationally is in a dire position. A number of authorities, like you say, controlled by all persuasions of political parties, have headed down the Section 114 route due to 13 years of austerity. That's fundamentally the cause of why this is happening. You really need to get your head around that. And secondly, I'll take no lectures from an administration who have spent £36 million in reserves, which leave us in a position potentially of March next year having no money in our budget risk reserve.
Thank you. Next question is from Councillor Prosser. Do you have a supplementary?
With nearly half of the calls to Derby Direct that are actually transferred going unanswered and these huge backlogs, what are the council doing to actually get on top of this? Because it's an ongoing problem and we need a solution fast.
I think you'll find that 42% of calls are answered by the artificial intelligence system, and calls are referred to humans if that is the most appropriate way to deal with a call, and people are put on a hold if there are a lot of people seeking help from a human. I've asked if it would be possible to have a callback system in that, or ringback system, but that would be prohibitive in terms of the cost, an astronomical cost, for what would be the ideal solution. As an alternative, if people can't be patient enough to wait in the queue, and I can understand that because it can be frustrating, I do suggest that they contact Community Action Derby, our partner organisation, who can then in depth look at the issue and help. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Halsgrave. Councillor Poulter, do you have a supplementary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Swan, the residents concerned here are the ones who live nearest to the unsightly ramp. They're not convinced by the answer. They don't believe you've answered the questions. They still do not know who, if anybody, was communicated with prior to the decision being taken. What's important, however, here is that communication is reinstated. They consider it's broken down in the recent months. Will you today commit to engaging with those residents mostly affected and seek solutions for the problems that they're experiencing.
I really want to laugh, but I'm not going to, Councillor Poulter. You put the bridge in. The ramps were your design. But quite rightly so, now that there is a decision being made for our community, on behalf of our community, that removes uncertainty, we will be consulting with residents to ensure that the side ramps can be addressed. And we will seek funding from mill owners and government where possible to do this. We do not have money. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Matthew Holmes, do you have a supplementary?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Shanker, for confirming the release of the settlement agreement and cabinet report. Will you agree to liaise with group leaders and/or exec scrutiny members in regards to any redactions proposed by officers or their council?
Once the release of the report, the full report and the papers spoken about, if there is any redaction and you feel that information is needed, more than happy to share that. What really does worry me though, Matt, as the deputy leader of the council in August 2020, when the long-term waste management agreement was terminated, you're having to ask a successive administration whether there was an NDA agreement or not. There wasn't. Surely you should be aware of that.
Okay, we've got Councillor Pattison. Do you have a supplementary question?
I do, thank you. Yeah, can I start by thanking Councillor Swan for leaving in the officer's top tip response in the last paragraph to her written answer. Contrary to what they suggest, I'm actually not going to say it's an insignificant amount of money, but actually request a full breakdown for the estimates officers have provided. Because comparing it to an FRI request a couple of years ago for a similar city authority, they gave a cost of 2,000 to 3,000 per year to maintain a crossing. So even with rising energy costs, Derby would seem to be an outlier. As councillors, we've been working for far longer than 12 months on this issue, and the time for delivery of what was secured in planning heads of terms for Mickleover is now. So can the Cabinet member please tell me when we will get our crossings and other road safety improvements?
Thank you, Councillor Pattison. I think we have been through this for the last probably 3 council meetings. You're fully aware of the revenue budget and the constraints on this local authority. We are talking about circumstances where we literally have no funding. You know this, and we cannot add anything else to our assets until we've got this under control. Thank you.
Councillor Kerr, do you have a supplementary question? Can we just have quiet, please?
Thank you, Councillor Dinser, for your answer. When you have a reply back from the Comms people, please could you ask them to share it with me as well?
Yes, certainly.
Thank you. Councillor Smale, do you have a supplementary question? No, thank you very much. Councillor Eyre, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Peatfield, for your answer, and credit where it's due. I'm very pleased with the answer that was provided. Under our previous administration, the last budget, we allocated substantial funding in a ring-fence budget for this year's festive derby, and all the feedback I've received and that Councillor Peatfield and I received on Monday is that without this budget, plans are very unlikely to be where they are today. So, can the Cabinet member confirm this new administration will retain the ring-fence budget in their budget next year and in subsequent years to allow a strong Christmas offer to be delivered?
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Christmas is very much part of the cultural calendar, and as the Cabinet member for the city centre, regeneration, culture and tourism, it's one of the biggest events of the year. It's of great importance to us, hence why we created the Cabinet role in the first place, to put extra emphasis on it. We will be doing everything we can to ensure that we have a full and vibrant calendar all year round.
Okay, the next question, we haven't got a written response, so I'm going to ask Alex Hough to read the question out.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Question AA is from Councillor Hassel to Councillor Shanker. It is, does the Council's Chief Executive Officer have the full confidence and support of the Leader and his Cabinet?
I don't think that's particularly helpful, Councillor Ringle. The Chief Executive has the absolute confidence of me as the Leader and of my Cabinet.
Councillor Hassel, do you have a supplementary? Councillor Prosser, do you have a supplementary?
Yeah, I do. So Community Action Derby is a great voluntary service. A lot of it's voluntary funded, not all of it, but a lot of it's voluntary done. But they do not have the power to do the council's work for them. So when people phone them, they're a great signposting organisation, but they can't do the council's work. Why are we saying that we are putting the council's work onto a voluntary organisation? Why are we pushing the phone system through them? And are we happy to do such a thing? To let an organisation do the council's work for them, particularly a voluntary one or mostly voluntary one?
I think this issue here is to address communication. And if Community Action Derby picks up on an issue which it needs to consult with the council, then it can do so. And maybe with a more easy time frame than someone on the end of the phone waiting and getting frustrated. So the issue will be dealt with once it's picked up by either organisation, and response will be given and help will be given as appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kerr, do you have a supplementary? Councillor Smale, do you have a supplementary? Just so we know where we are, we're on question EE. Councillor Eyre, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, Mr Mayor. The first answer isn't really an answer. I didn't ask whether we could influence Arrow Washers' policies, and we certainly should be trying to when I've read their local plan. I asked Councillor Denzer's opinions on it, so I do hope he would still be willing to give me those. But turning to Derby City then, given this council's environmental commitments and targets, many of which we've heard about today, the success of the free at the point of use brown bin collection service, and the chaos that bonfires can cause for vulnerable residents, especially those with breathing difficulties, can the Cabinet member officially rule out any introduction of a direct charge for collection of brown bin waste as existed before 2018-2019? Yes or no? You can turn the microphone on.
Was this question not related to the brown bin waste? Do you not want to answer it, Councillor Dinser?
I think that's just a refusal to answer that, Mr Mayor. The first question asked about brown bin waste, the supplementary question asked about brown bin waste.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. Councillor Kerr, do you have a supplementary?
Thank you, Councillor Whitby, for this. When data is available for this year, please could you arrange for it to be sent to me?
Yeah, Councillor Kerr, yes, we can do that. But I'm glad you've highlighted the fantastic work that our nursery schools are doing, and you know, helping us to sort of close the gap with some of our comparative authorities. We actually do better with early years education as a result of some of these fabulous schools. They're all rated good or outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you. Question GG. Councillor Eyre, do you have a supplementary relating to cycling events in Derby?
Yeah, it relates as much as the previous one did, Mr Mayor. I just hope this one will get an answer. Thank you, Councillor Peatfield. Watching highlights of the Tour of Britain early this month showed crowds 3 to 4 people deep for almost the final kilometre, and I know we'd all love to see that in Derby City. My group and I were huge supporters of this when it first came around, and we still are now. And as the city's cycling champion, I'm willing to offer any assistance I can to secure these events and the benefits they would bring. Would the Cabinet member be willing to take me up on that offer?
Of course, Councillor Eyre, always willing to collaborate and cooperate. Cycling tours are a great opportunity to bring vibrancy and excitement and a sense of togetherness for Derby. Conversations are ongoing. The last meeting was only on the 13th of September. We're always going to strive to bring these opportunities to the city, and we'd love to investigate any innovative ways that we can make that happen.
I'm glad some of the Cabinet will answer my question. Thank you.
Councillor Smale, do you have a supplementary on dangerous dogs? Sorry, Councillor Kerr, do you have a supplementary on No Mo May?
Yeah, no, thank you for this. I appreciate the answer, Councillor Dinser. I just think maybe we need to bring the information a little bit earlier on. Don't wait until March. Let's make sure we've got a plan of action ahead of that. Is that possible?
Yes, Councillor Kerr, that's certainly possible, and I'll take that away.
Thank you.
And see if we can action it. Thank you.
Question JJ. Councillor Smale, do you have a supplementary question on the Darley Abbey Bridge?
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Thank you very much for the answer, Councillor Swan. Obviously, just want to reiterate the communication that Councillor Poulter's put out. Obviously, not everyone is able to read the Cabinet reports, but will you be able to meet with residents regarding some details around parking near the bridge? I know that is becoming a bit of an increased problem, but anything to help the residents would be appreciated. Thank you.
The answer is yes.
Well, that was quite painless. So thank you very much for all that. Item 9, we will now consider a minute extract from the Standards Committee relating to the appointment of independent persons. I understand the committee are recommending the appointment of 2 new independent persons to the Council. Councillor Khan, as Chairman of the Standards Committee, will you move the minute, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just move it as printed.
Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Peatfield. Do we have any speakers? Okay, can I move to all those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Can't turn the page. Item 10. The next item of business is another minute referred to the full Council from the Standards Committee to receive their annual report for 2022-23. Councillor Khan, will you present the annual report, please?
Yes, thank you. Move as printed.
Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Shankar. Anybody want to speak on it? All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you very much. Item 11, we will now consider a minute extract from the Audit and Governance Committee, again relating to the appointment of independent members. The minute recommends the appointment of 4 independent members to the committee. Councillor Morgan McGeehan, as Chairman of the Audit and Governance, will you move the minute for consideration, please?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yes, I move as proposed.
Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you. Is there anybody who wishes to speak on it? All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Item 12, the only report on the agenda this evening relates to the annual report of overview and scrutiny. The report provides a summary of the Council's 6 overview and scrutiny boards over the last municipal year. Councillor Repton, as the Chairman of the Executive Scrutiny for last year, would you like to present the report to the Council, please?
Yes, Chair. I think members will have had the opportunity to read in detail, and I think there's some important parts to that we ought to use going forward. And we need to make sure that we use the scrutiny function in a positive and constructive way. And certainly that's what we did as an administration, to try to get the services right for the city and the people that live in it. I move the recommendation is printed. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you. Is there anybody who wishes to speak on it? Thank you very much. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. We now move to the notices of motions. The first motion is item 13, which is the NHS at 75. This is moved by Councillor Martin and seconded by Councillor Heselgrave. Councillor Martin.
Thank you. 2023 marks the 75th anniversary of the founding of the National Health Service, based on the principle of universal healthcare, which is free at the point of need. It was never actually free, but paid for by the contributions of all working people by a national insurance system. Everyone pays in according to their ability to pay, and everyone benefits. After the miseries of the 30s Great Depression and the deprivations of the war years, the country was ready for a system to serve individual need and thus improve the health of the social whole. 75 years later, And despite it all, the will of the British people still backs a national health service. It remains a key institution, embodying Britain at its best and people's social bonds. Today, unfortunately, we have seen the first ever strike of both consultants and junior doctors together. So we know that the NHS is not well. Over 7 million, well, over 7.5 million people actually are waiting for treatment. And the winter crises now arise in all seasons. Underfunded and left to flounder by our government, some speak of an existential crisis for the NHS, and yet it still exists. It exists because over the decades, and now more than ever, many thousands of NHS workers continue to deliver the care we need, often against the odds. We all pay for the NHS, and yet we still remain indebted to the healthcare workers who are there for us when we need them. And it's not just NHS staff we rely on. The new integrated care systems recognise the vital role of social and care workers in helping us to live healthy lives and in meeting our needs. So often, care workers, such as those at our own excellent Perth House, are unsung heroes. So with this motion, I'm asking all members to pay tribute to care workers and to NHS staff in the year of the NHS's fantastic but troubled 75th anniversary. I'm asking for the backing of full council to express our congratulations to the Derby and Derbyshire's NHS. And for the sake of the people of Derby, who so rely on the NHS and social care, and who are so often left frustrated and even angry that they cannot access the help they need right now, I'm asking for your support with government. If we are to implement the health vision as set out in the integrated care strategy, health and social care funding must increase. And we must be able to fill the many vacancies in the system. And for that, we need a workforce plan for social care and not just for the NHS. So, for the sake of your own ward residents and our great British institution, the NHS at 75, I ask you to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hasgrave, would you wish to speak or withhold?
I reserve my right to speak later.
Okay, do we have any other speakers on this motion? Councillor Swan.
Alison, I really welcome this motion, and as I'm sure lots of people in this room will recognise that it's about our family, our friends and neighbours. Social care is something that touches all our lives. I have worked and dedicated 30 years of my life in a variety of leadership roles, making sure that frontline services operate well. The thing that has astounded me more than anything else is the energy and dedication of low-paid frontline workers who get up every single day and deliver the best care possible. It's without doubt, if we want to continue to provide safe and effective support, we need to see the NHS as an investment in our communities. Thank you.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Chair. I wish to commence my contribution to this debate on the motion by expressing tribute to my predecessor, former Councillor Fareed Hussain, who during the tenure as a councillor for Arboretum Ward served both the ward and the council with distinction and exemplified public service. Fareed was a social worker who specialised in adult social care, and clearly if he was here this evening would bring an insight to this motion. I fully support the motion and support unequivocally the integrated care strategy. More funding is needed, as we know that both the NHS and social care have been underfunded for many years. The challenge of integration is to bridge the two sectors, one based on public ownership and the other mostly on private ownership. I would also wish to mention the dual anniversary of the NHS and the Windrush arrival to the UK in 1948, between 48 and the 70s. Windrush arrivals from the Caribbean were recruited to work in the newly created NHS. We should celebrate both and commemorate both events. Also, I'd like to pay tribute to those Windrush workers who have retired. Some have since passed on. And I'd like to pay tribute to one of the long-standing NHS retired worker, Miss Vida Johnson, who will turn 100 next year. I hope in due course that a motion will be brought to the council so that we can duly, formally commemorate the Windrush workers, health workers, and their contribution to the NHS. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any more speakers? Councillor Hazelgrave.
I would hope
I do beg your
there's
pardon, Councillor Hazelgrave.
widespread
Can I just change the order, because I've got Councillor Lonsdale did put her hand up before you. Sorry, Councillor Lonsdale.
I wouldn't have minded. So, 75 years. There are people still alive today who remember times before the NHS, including my father, who describes that time before the NHS existed as a grey time. He had asthma, he had to pay for his medicine. He was quite a poorly little boy at the time. So he says that when the NHS came in, it brought hope to his family. So supporting the NHS is very close to my heart. I don't want to go back to a grey time before the NHS. So I support this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Hazelgrave.
I would hope that there is wide consensus on the motion in front of us at the moment on which we are debating. I just want to home in a bit on the along with a comprehensive workforce plan. There are some issues experienced by care homes of various kinds in recruiting and retaining staff. How can we increase the status and respect for people who work in this industry without a career path and good remuneration? I think it's very difficult, and it's very understandable that people see it as a stopgap to do this kind of work and then move on. The only way forward is to have a workforce plan which is comprehensive and has incremental points through which people in that career can progress with increased expertise and experience. That gives better quality care to all those people that are involved with them, and it also gives the families of those people who are working in those industries a better amount of disposable income to enjoy the life they need to enjoy outside the work environment. So I'd urge you, since it's my NHS, your NHS, our NHS, that we support this motion and that we really do make sure that we home down on thinking about how we could locally home grow within a comprehensive work plan, how we could home in on home growing our own staff within that framework. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kerr.
Thank you. My grandparents were both doctors in Derby prior to the NHS, and they were then absorbed into the NHS when it was formed. And my mother used to, more than my grandmother, I didn't know my grandfather, but more used to tell me about some of the befores and some of the afters. And as other people have said, the NHS is a wonderful institution, and it has made an incredible difference to the people of this country. It needs to continue, it needs to be supported, it needs to go on working. And supporting acknowledgement of 75 years is a really positive thing to do. One of the things people have said recently about the NHS is that it is not as good at planning its workforce, and particularly its doctors, as it probably needs to be. That isn't our job, but the workforce of our care workers in Derby is our job. Cabinet received just shy of £1.75 million at the last Cabinet meeting towards us enabling that to do that. And I hope that this will follow through to Cabinet, a plan as to how we are using that money to do the safeguarding of the service to people in Derby from the care side of things for the future. I think we need to be looking long-term, exploring the ideas and making sure that we have a coherent plan here, and maybe something that we can show the government how it can do better.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Councillor Dinser.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to add my support to everybody's contribution in terms of the celebrating 75 years of the NHS, and it's good to be reminded of what experiences there have been before and after the formation of the NHS. From my perspective, many diverse communities, the Windrush generation, many from the Asian community, many different backgrounds have contributed to the successful organisation that the NHS has been. We all know that the challenges about demand and resources are continuously there. As health, technology and treatments improve, people will live longer, the demands on the NHS increase. And that has always been a challenge, but a challenge that the hard-working, dedicated people who actually run and deliver the services have risen to, despite often with vacancy rates which are high, the numbers to respond to the demands not being enough. They do a dedicated job, and many people have been saved, their lives have been saved, their life experience and length has been improved. And the two recommendations here are ones that can, one, celebrate and acknowledge the work done, but the second one is really important because a lot of talk has been made about the integrated care strategy, and the strategy is a great strategy, but I've always held that to deliver it and to make it effective, you do need the appropriate funding to make that happen. And from my own experience of 30 years in the probation service and having to deal with offenders and victims who are vulnerable, often accessibility for mental health services and other support mechanisms that the health service can provide have not always been to the levels that are required. And more work needs to be done to integrate some of those, the accessibility to vulnerable people, to the GP practices, to dentistry, to mental health services. They're all challenges, and those challenges can only be met if the appropriate funding is made available for mental health services and for the social care sector, which everybody knows in terms of remuneration, in terms of funding, in terms of integration with the wider health service. More can be done. And more can be done if the recommendations here are supported about funding and writing to the Secretary of State to see how we can actually make the delivery of a strategy which will be looking very good on paper more impactful. So I support this motion, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Dinser. Councillor Repton.
Yeah, whilst we celebrate the 75th birthday of our beloved NHS, the government should certainly hang its head in shame at the 7.5 million waiting list that grows each and every week. We know that our NHS is simply underfunded and overstretched. We, as a local authority, need more resources to help more people stay in their own homes and not go into hospital in the first place when it's safe and appropriate to do so. Yet, as we see with many councils up and down this country, like ones, irrespective of political party going to the wall, councils are not in a position to do that. So every aspect of this recommendation I support, and hopefully the whole of this chamber will as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ashby.
Thank you, Alison, for bringing this motion. I support this 100%, in fact, probably 200%. I joined the NHS in 1975, and I can tell you there's nothing like it. I come from a country where we don't have an NHS, so I know the experience of parents having to pay for us to be seen by a GP when we were ill as children and we were not a wealthy family. It was a hardship for them to do so. So I know the full value of the NHS. Having joined in the 70s, I also know the delight of working with many Windrush nurses in London. I've worked not just in hospitals, but also in care homes and in general practice, and have the great privilege of retiring just less than 2 months ago, still as a nurse in the NHS and still loving my job and loving giving that face-to-face patient care. But I am thrilled about the integrated care plans and 100% support the need to write to government. We can't make government do what we want them to do, but we can at least make our voice heard and say this is needed, because without proper funding for integrated care and without proper integrated care, the value of the NHS is never fully realised, and it's not going to be there for all of us, and none of us are getting any younger, because one thing is for sure, we're all a day older today, and we'll all get older and we'll all need more care, whether it's social care or health care. So I 100% support this motion, and I hope that this House will indeed completely support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now come to the wind-up. Councillor Martin, would you like to sum up?
Thank you. Thank you very much for the testimonies and the contributions of members this evening. I think they just show how there isn't anybody in the country, really, who's not been touched by the NHS, hasn't relied on the NHS, and probably does, wants to see that NHS continue. I'm glad that people do support, or I hope everyone in the chamber, all those who haven't spoken as well, will support this genuine tribute to the NHS workers, and also urge that the mess that's currently happening in the NHS is addressed, not least by the funding. With respect, Councillor Kerr, to the 1.75 million that adult social care has just received to help with some of the pressures in adult social care, it's very much a welcome sum of money. Plans are in place now. We're working on how and exactly where that funding will be spent, and it will be brought to Cabinet in due course. And every single penny is valued, and every single penny will be spent for the benefit of providing better care and dealing with the problems in social care in this city. The problem is it's a one-off little pot of money, and this is a problem. Trying to have a plan, trying to take things forward in a rational and planned way. We need an uplift or an increase in funding that is guaranteed over a number of years. And these little bit of pots of money, they help us sort of paddle against the tide, but they don't serve the main problem. And so we do, as I said before, I'll finish it very quickly in a moment. I talked to you at the last full council meeting when I made a statement on adult social care. We so need a plan for social care. We need a discourse about what we want to do with social care and what we can expect from it. And we need that national plan fed in, from people like ourselves and our residents. We do have very good structures for the NHS. Let's back the workers, let's back the NHS, and let's get back to government and say, come on, fund it properly, and let's look forward to another 75 years of the NHS. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now I'm going to put this to the vote. All those in favour of the motion? All those against? That was carried. Thank you very much. We now move on to item 14. This is a Diverse Councils declaration, moved by Councillor Onwaha and seconded by Councillor Kaur.
Thank you. On the 5th of May, as it was announced I had been elected a councillor in Derby, my phone started buzzing. People I hadn't spoken to for months, and people from my village of all places, were calling to congratulate their son for making them proud. It was It was a surreal moment. But here in Derby, I have had random people walk up to me on the streets during my ward rounds and tell me how proud they are of not just our campaign, but the fact that our city is gradually looking like the makeup of our residents. A lot of these people, I hasten to add, look nothing like me. Now, this is the power of diverse representation. It has the ability to inspire, to elevate conversations, and most importantly, to bring communities together, whether they're young people, old, immigrants, or veterans. But diversity isn't just about one's heritage. Because we councillors represent our communities, it is important that that diversity of those communities are reflected in this chamber and in this council. It is therefore important that underrepresented groups, especially those with protected characteristics, including age, disability, sexuality, race, and religious belief, can look down from the gallery or watch us online with the satisfaction that there is at least one councillor here with an understanding of their lived experience and who can be the champion on issues or policies that affect them. The Labour Party has made a commitment to this, and I am hopeful that we will get the support of other parties as we work towards having a more diverse council for the good of our residents. And yes, some might argue that it is up to residents to choose their elected representatives. They would argue that if only a certain group of people have been chosen by our residents, why the fuss? That is a valid point. It is. But let me also remind us that the residents only choose from the pool of candidates that parties put forward. So ultimately, it is up to all political parties to lead the charge with whether or not we have a diverse council. As part of the commitment to diversity in our councils, the Cooperative Party recently carried out a consultation to better understand the public's view on the subject. The consultation revealed as follows. 96.2% of respondents felt that it is important for good decision-making that our councils reflect the diversity of their residents. Less than 50% felt that their local authorities were achieving this well enough at present. 96% of councillors described themselves as white. 88% described themselves as heterosexuals or straight. 16% have a disability or long-term condition. 36% have caring responsibilities. 36% are female. I wonder where Derby City Council would rank on the above metrics. So what are some of the steps we as a council can take towards being more diverse? You already have the motion before you, and I would not want to go through all the provisions, but permit me to highlight just a few. 1, appoint diversity ambassadors for each political group on the council to work with each other and local associations to encourage recruitment of candidates from underrepresented groups. As a BAME champion for the Labour group, I would like to work alongside other BAME champions from other groups to ensure our plans and policies take into cognizance the diversity of our residents. 2, encourage and enable people from underrepresented groups to stand for office through the provision of activities such as mentoring and shadowing programs and information and learning events for people interested in standing as official candidates. 3 is to provide flexibility in council business by regularly reviewing and staggering meeting times, encouraging and supporting remote attendance at meetings, agreeing recess periods to support councillors with caring or work commitments. 4, taking a zero-tolerance approach to bullying and harassment of members, including through social networks. Ensuring that council adopts a parental leave policy, setting out members' entitlements to maternity, paternity, shared parental and adoption leave, and relevant allowances.
Excuse me, Councillor Anwar, can we just listen to the speaker, please?
Thank you. And lastly, ensure that councillors from underrepresented groups are represented whenever possible in high-profile, high-influence roles. To be fair, I am aware that we are all doing this in some form or the other as political parties. What this motion provides us is the opportunity to speak with one voice as a council and declare loudly for all to hear that we are committed to and will henceforth work unanimously to make our council a diverse one. If we listen to our residents, which as councillors we should, we will hear that they too are in support of this motion. We have the responsibility to not leave them disappointed. While I agree that we cannot expect to do everything outlined in this declaration this year or even during our term, I believe we can start with a clear public commitment to improving diversity. We may be divided by our politics, but I urge us all to stand united behind this policy, because divided we fall and diverse we stand strong. In conclusion, let me paraphrase the Bible verse quoted in the beginning. You have inspired me, sir. Do not conform to the gang-up of politics, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Thank you.
Councillor Coy, you seconded it. Would you like to reserve your right, or are you going to speak now?
I would like to speak now, please.
Excellent.
Thank you. I'm proud to second the Diverse Council's declaration. The motion would ensure we provide the most appropriate learning and development opportunities to underrepresented groups. We would work towards setting up the Diverse Council Action Plan ahead of the next local elections, ensuring that diversity ambassadors are appointed for each political group to encourage these from underrepresented groups to stand as candidates in their wards. Ambassadors would ensure that such candidates are provided with development opportunities that suit their needs and learning events for people interested in standing as official candidates. We would commit to taking a zero-tolerance approach, as mentioned before, to bullying and harassment, and this includes social media. We know that women, ethnic minorities, LGBTQ+, and those with disabilities are targeted disproportionately at high rates. Crucially, our behaviour and conduct in the community must demonstrate an open and welcoming culture for all. We must proactively engage with underrepresented groups in our wards. For example, a single parent with childcare commitments must be able to stand as a candidate firm in the belief that their childcare needs will be supported if they're elected. We must stand with those with mental health difficulties to support their well-being throughout carrying out their role. There are many more examples of this. There are many more other ways we can encourage and enable people from underrepresented groups to stand for office. In doing so, we make certain that this chamber is the best reflection of Derby and reassure residents that their voice will be heard in the decisions that we make. As a new councillor, I'm truly grateful for the support I have received, but we can still do more. The declaration states that councillors from underrepresented groups should be actively encouraged to take high-profile, high-influence and high-influence roles. Mentorship and shadowing, again, opportunities should be available for all to encourage individuals into more senior roles. Councillors as a group should recognise, promote and celebrate the talent and diversity of our colleagues. So the council actively and visibly recognises all people in society. As the youngest councillor in this chamber, as a newly elected woman of colour, I would be proud of my fellow councillors in joining us in making a collective commitment to inspire the future generation of councillors by saying that yes, there is a space for you here. You can be a representative of the people because we will ensure that appropriate support and development opportunities are available to suit your needs. We will commit to breaking any barriers preventing you from wanting to do the best for your ward and for your community. Thank you.
Councillor Pandy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah. I don't think this is the right time to put this motion forward, especially when the Cabinet keeps saying that they don't have money. There are more pressing issues to be discussed. And if any of these proposals are going to incur any further cost, then where are you going to get the money from? The other thing about the council and country in general, look at this council, and this is represented by a diverse leader. Not so until last year we had and the year before we had a diverse mayor. The country is represented by a diverse prime minister. If I look at the whole of Europe, maybe a whole of Western world, I would certainly can say the UK does offer the diversity the most preference. This is the country with, where we can proudly say the diversity also already represented. The constitution of the UK, constitution of the city council already offers, I don't think there is anything legally which can hamper any of the diverse candidates to not to do anything in the city or in this country. So it's politicking. I don't think this is a time when, like I said before, when council has said more pressing issues. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor, CP 64.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like some legal guidance, really, on point 6 of the motion. Specifically the sentence, encouraging and supporting remote attendance at meetings. It's a very specific point, really, but the motion talks about councillors and what we should do or should be doing. And given the fact that we can schedule most of our own meetings with individual officers and the wording of the point above this one, so regularly reviewing and staggering meeting times, it reads that point 6 is about full council, cabinet and scrutiny committee meetings. Now, my legal understanding of this is that following the expiration on the 7th of May 2021 of the Local Authorities and Police and Crime Panel's Coronavirus Flexibility of Local Authority and Police and Crime Panel Meetings, England and Wales regulations, which previously permitted remote meetings for full council, cabinet and scrutiny committees, and following the unsuccessful legal challenge by Hertfordshire County Council, the Association of Democratic Services Officers and Lawyers in Local Government, where the High Court ruled Schedule 12 of the Local Government Act 1972 could not be interpreted to permit remote meetings, we are required by law to hold full council, cabinet and scrutiny committee meetings in person. But we're being asked in this motion to be, quote, encouraging and supporting remote attendance at meetings, something which on my reading of the law is not permitted in legislation or in case law. So could we have some legal guidance on this, please?
Thank you. Just give me a second.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. You're correct in the sense that at the moment we are not legally permitted to hold our meetings remotely, and for a member to be present at the meeting and count as being in attendance, they must be here in person. It's worth saying that the government did ask for a call for evidence on remote meetings, and this council did submit evidence to that in support of the ability to hold remote meetings. I think it would be therefore a matter of interpretation of the wording of the motion as to whether this was specifically about how we hold our existing meetings or whether this council is prepared to support lobbying of government and support for the LGA matters about making remote meetings a possibility.
So if we can just add on that point of order, Mr. Mayor, if it said lobbying for remote attendance at meetings, I wouldn't have a query with it. But how can we say that we're going to encourage remote attendance at meetings if that attendance is not legal to do? Encourage doesn't mean the same as lobbying.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. We'll just discuss this.
I think the other point is it does, I mean, I don't want to get drawn into the politics of this motion. However, I would say that it refers to meetings, not specifically about committee. The council has a variety of meetings, briefings, training, all of those things. I would suggest that we could facilitate those remotely. We do tend to. However, if you feel that, it is always open to you, Councillor, to propose an amendment.
I do have some sympathy with your point of view because the item does say council business, and that would necessarily interpret meetings like this, which we're not able to do. Yeah, I know. Councillor Eyre, I think I'm going to carry on with the business. I think we should take your point. If anybody wishes to make an amendment, then I would encourage that. But at the moment, we're going to continue with the business. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Chair. Can we get back to the substantiveness of the motion, please? Thank you. I wish to speak unequivocally in support of the motion. On the 5th of May, I became the first black female councillor to represent the Arboretum ward and elected to the council. As the council's gender champion, it should be noted that being the first black female elected councillor to our local democracy is not the future and does not exemplify progress, nor should being the only black female councillor be considered acceptable. Incidentally, 20 years ago, I became the first black female professor in the East Midlands. And over those 20 years, I would say that our universities across the region have done their utmost to employ and attract female professors. And I'd like to think that we, as a council, will take on board what is stipulated within the motion to actually implement strategic approaches to ensuring that I don't remain the isolated figure of a black woman. The motion emanates from the Diverse Council Declaration developed by the Cooperative Party. I'm also a Labour and Cooperative Party member. I am a member of the Cooperative Party's National Executive Governing Body. In essence, the essence of this motion, as indeed in terms of the values of the Cooperative Party, is that equality goes hand in hand with democracy. The motion grapples with structural issues of diversity within political parties and the wider community. The motion encourages greater representation, and we desperately need that. As such, it enhances the democratic process, enhances engagement, and therefore the quality of decision-making. It is therefore worthy of everyone's support. Thank you.
Councillor Prosser.
So, Reform Derby is proud to always field a diverse range of candidates, and while many of the inspirations for this motion are commendable, the motion is unfortunately a waste of time. Much of this motion is outside the scope of this meeting and the powers of the council. Some items in this long list refer to members' support, which is covered by council procedures already, and a simple request would see issues rectified. Other items seek to rewrite the Constitution. The Constitution review is happening right now, and this is not the time or place to debate such matters. The rest refer to electoral matters. It is not within the powers or privileges of this council to influence or assist in the recruitment, training and selection of election candidates, or influence the votes within this chamber. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kerr.
I was first elected in '93 to the county council, and then if I looked around the chamber, it was far less diverse, and yes, the county is less diverse than the city, and it was then as well, and it was far more male. We have made progress, and we are continuing to make progress. And when this motion came forward, and I read it, I thought, oh, how does our diversity compare with the city at the moment? I know it's made progress, but how far has it got? You can look up what the diversity of the city is from the 2021 census. And I asked for information as to what the diversity was of our group. And you will have, people who were at the training on whichever day it was, a couple of days ago, will have known that we don't actually know officially what the diversity of our body is. But I looked at who was there, and I put people in different columns. My judgment, completely what you shouldn't do. But I reckoned that we were pretty diverse on those broad brush Asian, black, white elements. We are pretty close to the rest of our city. We're doing okay. The gender isn't right, the age isn't right, but in terms of racial makeup, we're approximately, and you never get it exactly right with only 51 people,
We're approximately right in the right order. So I don't think we ought to beat ourselves up. We are going in the right direction, and we already have many of the things that are mentioned in this motion in place. Officers talk to us about when we want to meet, and we adjust it. We had a discussion last year, and at the AGM, we agreed that exec scrutiny would meet at 5 o'clock. We changed that. We now meet at 6 o'clock because it suited more people. We said we were going to meet, Virginia, we were going to meet on a Tuesday. Well, we thought, is that right? We're now meeting on the Monday. We can change things. If we want to change things, we already have the mechanism to do that. As individual councillors, we have a lot of support. We can talk to our officers and member services, and we get the reasonable adjustments that are expected, as this is our workplace, although we're not officially workers of the council. So we also have high expectations in our standards of conduct, which again, we have had training on that recently. And we have that flexibility to do what we want. It is there built into our existing constitution, and we need to make sure it's there in the one that we're going through at the moment, as was mentioned. The Local Government Association is also very aware of this situation, and the council has at times provided political parties with literature from the LGA to say, this is how you can make sure that the candidates in your elections are reflective of the wider community. And they have provided encouragement, they run courses to encourage that within the whole of the country. Not just us, but the City Council is aware of that and has been really supportive of that. So I don't think we should beat ourselves up about this. We are doing many of those things already. We don't need to say we're not doing it all at the moment, because we are. We could turn this motion round and congratulate ourselves. But you're not actually allowed to amend motions to say we're going to congratulate ourselves. But in many ways, I think that is what we should be doing. So despite knowing that this is a really important thing to do, I don't want to undermine what the council itself is already doing by voting for something which we're already doing. It could have been a motion saying we're doing well, but it isn't. It's a motion beating ourselves up, and I don't want to beat ourselves up as a council. So I'm really sorry. I believe in what's there, but I'm not planning to support it.
Thank you. Councillor Ralston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to come in on what was just said there in terms of proportionality in Derby. And just having some basic research, you know, we are 73.8% in Derby City, white British. And we do have a 4% who identify as black, black British, black Welsh, black Caribbean or African. Ultimately, there's 51 councillors in this room. 4% of 51 is 2 councillors. So that's great. And I, for one, think that's a fantastic addition to our council. But the reality is that you were elected on you and your merit as being elected. And I like to think that I was elected on being me and myself, not because I'm a woman or not because of my name, it's because of who I am. So, you know, from my perspective, I do think we are over-egging a situation that we know in the city already exists. When you talk about barriers, when I first became a councillor, I was a mum of 3 young children, 2 of which have ASD and are disabled, and I was supported to be a cabinet member through support through our member services, and the funding was provided to help me with childcare. Those things are in place already. There are some great things that we do as a council. So although I support what your ethos is, I think you're asking us to do something that isn't in the council's remit. This is MDDCA for us, for our Conservative group. Our MDDCA organises that side. It's not for this council to decide who we put up as members. That's for us as an individual parties to represent. And we have put up a diverse electorate before now. But unfortunately, the ones that we've been elected in, the areas that we're elected in, have left us with what we have. And actually, in this city, we are well proportioned, as Councillor Kerr has said. So I just think I understand the ethos and what you're trying to achieve, but actually I think we're doing really well for Derby City, and I think we should congratulate ourselves for continuing to do that and put people forward for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Peatfield.
Wow, it's like diversity bingo tonight. Are we really patting ourselves on the back for our efforts to increase diversity in this council? Because if we are, then you should all be congratulating the Labour Party for our efforts in the last election to try and increase the diversity in this council chamber. And down to our efforts alone, we've increased, for example, our women within the Labour group has increased from 4 to 10 since the last election, which is a fantastic achievement. However, thanks to the other parties, it's only actually increased in the whole chamber up to 16. Now, a figure was quoted earlier about the average number of women in local government is 36%. Well, in our council, the percentage of women in this chamber is 31%. So please don't anyone lecture us on that and congratulate yourselves and pat yourselves on the back that we are a diverse council, because we are not. We are under the average. And the last time I looked, the representation of not only Derby but the entire world is roughly 52% of women. So if we're at 31%, then we are definitely not representative of the women within our city, never mind all of the other protected characteristics. Now, I'm going to address, first of all, let's see, Councillor Ralston, you were elected on your merit. Absolutely, congratulations. However, the whole best person for the job, and it's not because I hope I'm not elected because I'm a woman. I hope I'm elected to be the best person for the job. It veils a bias that suppresses this diversity conversation at the end of the day. Councillor Prosser, when you talk about you're proud that you have fielded many diverse candidates, how many of those diverse candidates did you put into winnable seats? You know, these are the things that we are asking the whole chamber to address, not just our party. So the way, in the same manner that we have embraced and we are still striving to be better and to be more diverse, this motion asks for the entire council to do the same. Otherwise, the onus is only on those of us who feel the responsibility of it, and it seems that everyone else is shirking that responsibility today. 3 years ago, I stood in the tent in the marketplace and I presented the findings of a review on equality, and I spoke of how lacking it was. I spoke of how the council needs to do more to encourage diversity, and we can, by all means, as a full council, and officers can all help to encourage people of all diversities to stand to be councillors of any persuasion. That is not political. That is just enabling us to reach out to the public and make it an accessible thing to do. 3 years on from me encouraging that, nothing else has happened in terms of the council itself making this a more accessible place to be. So we absolutely do need this motion. It's absolute rubbish to say that it's not in our remit. Other councils across the country have embraced this motion. It is a standard motion that has been accepted by many, many councils who have been proud to stand up and say, we all need to do more. While we are striving to do our best, we can always achieve more, and let's not be complacent and pat ourselves on the back just because we think that we've done enough. It isn't enough. Thank you.
Councillor Ashby.
Thank you. I, not surprisingly, wish to speak in support of this motion. And I would seek to remind you, many of us were present at the online training on Monday with Anne Webster. Diversity, Councillor Ralston, is far greater than colour or creed. And, you know, okay, many of us may be white, but we ain't all British. So don't, you know, let's remember white is broader than British. As Anne reminded us on Monday evening, she is not white British either. So I see this motion as saying, as a council, we aspire to be a diverse council, Now, in reality, those of you who have spoken against the motion are also speaking at the same time and saying, but we are diverse and, you know, give ourselves a clap in the back. If you're saying we're already diverse, give ourselves a clap in the back, I do not understand why you're not supporting the motion, because it's not saying you have to be diverse or not diverse to support the motion. And it's a happy chance that at the moment we have 4% of black councillors. I haven't sat here and counted numbers. I can't tell you how many, well, I can probably tell you how many Irish councillors we've got. And I'm sure I don't represent the number of Irish councillors in the city.
Can I get you to speak this way?
I beg your
I'm not
pardon.
saying you sit down. Speak this way rather
I beg your pardon.
That's
I'm
it.
used to speaking publicly in a different setting where I can face people. I beg your pardon. I'm simply saying I don't understand why those of you who are speaking against it, but at the same time saying you embrace diversity, your words seem to contradict yourselves. So I support this motion, and I truly hope, I am the disability champion for the council. I love working with Anne. I'm not sure we have many people in the council with disabilities, let alone LGBT plus and all the rest. So I think we definitely need to support the motion and to aspire and aim to be as diverse as we possibly can, and aim to well, I'm so glad I provided
Can we have some quiet?
I'm
Listen
not
to the
gifted
speaker.
as a comedian, so thank you. So I support the motion and would encourage as many as possible in all conscience to support it and stop messing about with party lines. This isn't a party political.
Thank you. Councillor Dinser.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think let's just remind ourselves the passionate and eloquent way that Councillor Anua and Councillor Cole presented this motion. They presented it in a, not in a sort of say beating, shaking their hands and say, this is, we're outrageous, we're not doing anything. It's a question of saying, these are fundamentally the right things to do. And if a lot of the things in here we are already doing, let's celebrate that. Councillor Kerr, I just don't understand the logic of saying that you're supportive and you understand, and then you feel that a lot of these things are done, and therefore you can't support the motion. That rationale defeats me, really. This motion is not about changing the Constitution. It's not about upending whatever is already there. The law cannot be upturned. This is about ambition. This is about where we are, what we are doing, which is actually taking off some of these things, but the ambition to go further. Councillor Alderson's comments about, people who deserve to be here or get elected here, they're the ones who, they get here and they represent us. But opportunity sometimes doesn't even get offered to individuals to even be as candidates. I know that in my experience in the Labour Party. I'm sure it's the same in every other political group. And sometimes enabling and allowing people the opportunity to stand, irrespective of what you stand, whether the public want to vote for you, that's a different matter. But it's getting to that point. We need to do what we can to encourage as diverse a group from many different backgrounds. And it's not just about race. It's not just about gender. It's about all sorts of experiences and backgrounds. And I think the contents in here are about making it as amenable, welcoming, comfortable, irrespective of what background, gender, race, ethnic origin, or even belief you come from. So let's not try to pick holes. Let's not say, oh, no point voting for this because we already do most of this. Let's do what's right and support this motion, because it's not going to undermine anything. It's not going to change anything. It's about aspiring to do things which will maintain a diversity and increase the diversity in its many splendid forms. So I hope that people can put aside their concerns and actually support this motion, because the two speakers who spoke for the first time on a motion here, both spoke, I felt, very eloquently, without malice, but just trying to promote something which is the right thing to do. I support this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Lonsdale.
Thank you. I saw this motion and I was excited. I thought, oh, great, a diversity motion. And then I read it and I thought, oh, but that's something that we should be taking back to our parties because we need to present the public who elect us with a diverse group of people to elect. The Liberal Democrats have been doing that for years. And we've had quite a diverse group for years. Well done, Labour, for coming into getting it up. Well done. But I can't support this motion because it doesn't actually do anything. We are doing these things already, and it could have been so good. It could have addressed some of the age issues in this chamber. How many of us are retired in here? I'm not. It could have addressed the fact that there aren't as many disabled people in this chamber. I am disabled, by the way, so there is at least one of us. I know of many others, actually, but I won't out anyone. There are LGBTQ people in this chamber, but should there be more? Representation is really important, but I don't think this motion is going to do it. So, I can't support it. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Lonsdale. Councillor Lindsay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All this just seems to boil down to respect. If you can't respect each other, then you shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be representing your people. Just respect each other, regardless of the colour, the age, whatever, disabilities. It's easy. That's the way I was brought up. If you weren't brought up that way, learn. Thank you.
Councillor Poulter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just very briefly, one particular point. This aspect of this not being party political. And yet, Councillor Peatfield, you say that this is a standard motion brought forward by the Cooperative Party. Just for your information, nobody on this side of the chamber is a member of the Cooperative Party and thereby beholding to them. Thank you.
Councillor Mulhall.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and I do believe this is the first time I've spoken in full council, so this is all very exciting. I can't support this motion. I have enormous respect for the member of Mackworth, but I really can't. And there's 2 points in particular that I want to highlight that I've got major beef with. The first one is around item number 2, where it says, demonstrate an open and welcoming culture to all, promoting the highest standards of behaviour and conduct, which I find quite surprising coming from the Labour Party, since it was you lot who all walked out during the mayor making. So actually, I think you guys need a mirror to your party, not anybody else in this chamber. And the final point is around number 9, where it says, ensure that councillors from underrepresented groups are represented wherever possible in high profile and high influence roles. Well, if you hadn't already guessed, and this is what we were giggling about earlier, I am a fabulous homosexual. So does that therefore mean that I am given a high profile role that has major influence? No, it shouldn't. If I want a high profile role with some considerable influence, I would like to think that I get there on my merit and the content of the character, not because of my sexuality. So unfortunately, I cannot support this and I will be voting against.
Councillor Hassel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Clearly, this is a well-meaning motion, and I congratulate the 2 new members on their very eloquent speeches. However, I think we're sort of getting in front of ourselves here, in the sense of, if we want to encourage people into politics, it's about policy and trust. We need to work harder on those 2 things to encourage all people to come to us and say, yes, I want to stand against that. That's what I think is right for our community, and that's why I want to get into politics. I think this is a step in front of what we really need to be doing, and unfortunately, the greatest of respect, our group won't be voting in favour of. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Anwahu, would you like to sum up?
Thank you. If I had a clear head when I started, with some of the arguments I've heard this night saying, I'm for it, but I'm not against it. You know, it's everything being turned on its head. You know, right now I don't even know where we are. The contradiction is sort of like a masterclass in spin. Councillor Pandey asked about money, yet his group talks about, oh, look, we're already doing these things. If we're already doing these things, that means surely they're already funded. I just wonder if he's comfortable being the token candidate in the group and someone that he can always point to and say, oh, look, we've also got someone.
Mr. Mayor, surely that comment is out of order.
Mr. Councillor Anwahu, can you keep your speech to the motion?
I will. But I think it's quite interesting to stand up and say, oh, look at us, there's that diversity. We're already doing this, it's just you. I'm not going to support it. Anyway, make of that what you will. Councillor Eyre talks about remote meetings trying to change or just narrow the definition of meetings. We're already having remote meetings, whether it's training, councillor trainings, or whether it's committee meetings. And surely, you know, with the preponderance of many in his group missing meetings, again, at the last scrutiny meeting we had, Councillor Pandey was stuck for over an hour looking for parking space and never came for that meeting. But surely, if he had logged in online, this motion, that part of our remote meetings would have been beneficial to him. Now, we keep sticking to just race, and it's quite funny because this motion isn't about race alone. It's about religion. It's about faith. It's about disabilities. It's about people from underrepresented communities, and there are many, you know, there, you know, especially the fabulous, in your own words, fabulous homosexual. Councillor Kerr, you know, I seriously don't know. I'm so confused about where she stands. Is she for it? Is she not for it? It's always that thing of saying this is good, but you know it's bad because it's good, and therefore it's bad. I don't know. I really don't know the reason a lot of people. I don't understand the reason a lot of people have put up for saying, while I like this motion, while I support it, I can't support it. So I'll ask you to do what you feel is right. If you feel that turning down a declaration that we should be a diverse council is the right thing to do, please go ahead. Vote according to your conscience. And thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, can we have a recorded vote, please?
Do we have 10? Okay, there will be a recorded vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I read councillors' names, will you please indicate whether you are for or against the motion as it is printed in your agenda, please? Councillor Amin. For. Councillor Ashby. For. Councillor Atwal. Councillor Bolton. For. Councillor Bonser. For. Councillor Kerr. Councillor Chambers. For. Councillor Dinser. Councillor Evans. Yes. Councillor Eyre. Yes. Councillor Falk. Yes. Councillor Hassel. Councillor Hazelgrave. For. Councillor Alison Holmes. Yes. Councillor Matthew Holmes. Yes. Councillor Hudson. Sorry, Councillor Celia Ingle. Councillor Kaur. Councillor Kaur. Councillor Jangir Khan. For. Councillor Shiraz Khan. Councillor Kozlowski. Councillor Cuss. Councillor Lakin. Councillor Lindsay. Councillor Lonsdale. Councillor Martin. Councillor Morgan McGeehan. Councillor Mulhall. Councillor Nawaz. Councillor Anwaha. Councillor Pandey. Councillor Patterson. Councillor Pearce. Apologies. Councillor Peatfield. Councillor Potter. Councillor Poulter. Councillor Prosser. Councillor Rawson. Councillor Repton. Councillor Ralston. Councillor Sandu. Sorry, apologies. Councillor Shanker. Councillor Smale. Councillor Swan. Councillor Truella. Councillor Whitby. Councillor Wilson. Councillor Cecile Wright. Councillor John Wright. And the Mayor, Councillor Graves. The motion is tied. Mr Mayor, do you wish to use your casting vote?
No, tied, the motion falls.
Sorry, the urgent motion is the item about support for Alstom, moved by Councillor Shanker and seconded by Councillor Hassel. Councillor Shanker, would you like to speak?
Thank you. I'm deeply concerned, and I'm sure the whole chamber is, with recent coverage in the media that we all would have seen and heard by now regarding the potential 3-year production gap at Alstom's Litchurch Lane factory here in Derby, risking the jobs of up to 2,000 people directly employed by Alstom, but up to 17,000 people employed in the wider supply chain. Alstom Derby, if you go around the factory today, is very busy. It's producing or completing orders for Aventra, for the UK network, and the Cairo monorail export order, the first export order with UK manufactured rolling stock since the Derby built trains were supplied to Africa back in 2008. Unfortunately, from early 24 through to late 2026, I'm told, when the first HS2 orders would start, and that could move out further, given recent media reports, there is no confirmed work for the factory, with many potential opportunities for new trains and fleet orders being delayed. Alstom have had a number of meetings, I'm told, with the Department for Transport over the last 4 months, designed to bring forward some of the tender opportunities to the market to ensure a continued and sustainable operation. Just so Council is aware, I immediately last week wrote to the Secretary of State for Transport urging him to get round the table with Alstom and trade unions to make sure a solution can be found to this problem. As yet, I haven't got a response, but I'm sure the Secretary of State will respond. But I think it's important to remind everybody here, Alstom's not asking for a bailout. They're not asking for guaranteed orders to come forward. But what they're looking at is asking government to bring forward tenders, which will come forward, but they need to be brought forward with a sense of urgency, so that Alstom, along with their competitors, can actually bid for these orders, and they're confident they'd secure orders. They're not asking for any favours, any grants, or any confirmed orders. It's just the opportunity to be able to do what they need to do, as has been seen in other sectors with the government's industrial strategy. The situation regarding Derby and Alstom here is very urgent. Like I say, the factory has no work for almost 3 years between 24 and 26. And part of this is the continued delays in HS2 and the failure of the department to bring forward these tenders. And the reality is inevitable. If these tenders don't come forward, there will be redundancies in Derby, at Alstom, and like I said, the wider supply chain. The Derby factory on Litchurch Lane is the only UK train factory that has the ability to design, build, engineer and test trains for the UK and for the export market. The site is one of Alstom's largest production facilities, not just here or in Europe, but anywhere in the world. And it's the centre of excellence for the monorail trains. The factory, opened by Midland Railway back in 1876 here in Derby, has continuously produced trains here in Derby since even earlier than that, 1839. And I'm sure everybody recalls just last year, Derby was chosen by the government after a public vote included in that process to be the home of Great British Railways. And there was plenty of other cities who were competing for that, and it was a massive, massive achievement, not just for Alstom, but for Derby as a city to be selected as the home of Great British Railways. Rightly so, with our proud heritage in the industry and the opportunities we have taking GBR and railways across this country forward in the future. Were the factory to close because orders aren't forthcoming, or the opportunity to apply for orders aren't forthcoming, the United Kingdom would be the only country in the whole of the G7 without the ability to design and manufacture its own trains. And how sad would that be? So this motion, Mr. Mayor, councillors, I hope every single member left in this chamber today, although Lucy may be doing one of the famous amendments here, I hope she doesn't change it too much. Everybody can get behind this motion, support the motion, send a strong message of support to everybody involved with Alstom, but also a strong message to government, ministers, Secretary of States involved to say Derby, once again, is absolutely united, stands behind our rail sector and encourages government to get around the table, along with trade unions, along with senior executives of Alstom, and make sure those opportunities to bid for orders are brought forward with a degree of urgency. The order book does dry up early next year. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shankar. Councillor Hassel, would you like to speak?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. More than happy to second this really important motion. I won't repeat the salient points that Councillor Shankar has already made on the importance of maintaining our workforce at Alstom in Derby. The heritage, the workforce, the economy are all important things, as we know. But I want to make the point of, you know, if things did go the wrong way for Alstom and there were redundancies, that's a critical loss in the workforce of skill and knowledge that could disseminate elsewhere and never be returned. So this chamber's been here before on similar matters, and it's always heartening to see political groups come together on matters of strategic and economic importance of this nature. I think I also would ask is that any sort of letter that is written on from the leader, that the opportunity is extended to other leaders of other parties to join in that message to the government to do the right thing. This is not a matter about giving preference or special treatment. We just want our boys and girls, men and women, all at Alstom to have the opportunity to continue the good work they're doing here in Derby. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Prosser.
Yeah, I mean, this is a facility of national importance, and we need to do everything we can to ensure that the work continues and that Derby's success continues alongside them. It's been a very long time since I picked up a screwdriver in their workshop, believe it or not, but they are so important to this city. We need to do everything we can, and we really support this motion to get something done.
Councillor Kerr.
Thank you. And absolutely, as other people have said, this is a really important issue for the city. And it's not just now. We've been in this situation before where our rail industry has been on the brink. And it isn't just 3 years and the project that we want to have before the 3 years. We want this to be a long-term commitment to Derby, to rail building in Britain. And I've got, therefore, an amendment to say we shouldn't just be thinking about now. We actually need to get the government to plan in the same way as it needs to plan the NHS workforce. It needs to be able to plan its rail manufacturing schedule, its train building for the UK.
Councillor
Shouldn't
Kerr,
be done piecemeal.
just to help the process, do you have that
I have it,
amendment?
but I can't read it out and carry it.
Can you pass
So,
that to the officers?
Can I just read it out and I'll hand it over? So it's to add a third point, at the end of the motion to say, to ask the government to plan the scheduling of new railway rolling stock for the UK network in a manner that ensures the long-term survival of a train building industry in the UK.
Do we have a seconder? Yeah. Councillor Shaka, I'll second that. Is everybody happy that we take this?
Do they want to see it displayed, or are they?
Do you want this displayed, or are you happy to take this as an amendment? Or take a vote? You're okay to take a vote? Good. All those in favour of the amendment? Anybody against? Thank you. We'll carry on with the amended motion. Councillor Kerr, do you want to continue?
I think I've said all that needs saying.
Thank you.
Any other speakers?
Can we have that in writing? Thank you. I've had a move to the vote and no more speakers. I can then come back to Councillor Shankar if you wish to speak further on this.
Just briefly, thank you everybody in the chamber. I think this sends a strong, powerful message and absolutely happy to share any correspondence that we have with ministers and Secretary of State with the seconder of the motion and anybody else who wants to be copied in. But the significance of having a united, strong voice from the council collectively will be a powerful one. Thank you.
Great. It's a great motion to finish on. All those in favour? Anyone against? That's carried. That's unanimous. That concludes this evening's meeting. Thank you to everyone in the council chamber and those watching at home. I look forward to seeing you all again in 2 months' time.